So I'm the CEO of a company called BioViva, and what made me want to treat biological aging as a disease is really it was a reaction from my son's diagnosis of type 1 diabetes, of all things, when he was 9 years old. I had already been spending 2 years working for a regenerative medicine project, and I knew that there was a lot of research that had been done and when I ended up in Children's Hospital with him, and learning about type 1 diabetes and seeing all of the sick children that are at the hospital, I really wondered why medicine was moving so slow if in research we had cured many diseases and we had shown such promise in stem cells and also genetics. So really my starting BioViva was a response to open sourcing technology to the world that had sat in research in some case for over a decade.
So that's yeah, it's a really moving story. When I heard it first, then you decided to become patient zero in 2015. No one had ever done it before, so there was maybe a lot that could go wrong. Could you walk us through the decision process of everything you decided and maybe the risk you saw and you took?
Yeah, so in 2013 when my son was diagnosed, I started traveling to find out how we could cure childhood disease and actually get these technologies to them. And what I found in a very twisting and turning way was aging research, and that a lot of the genes that could treat symptoms of biological aging, some of the hallmarks of biological aging, could work as potentially curative medicine for some childhood diseases. And putting the dots together, which took me 2 more years in 2015 when we launched the company, we decided that the biggest impact that we could make was to get this technology out of animal research and into human data. And so the company was started with the idea that we would treat the first patient. The first patient would be me, and that we would see if two gene therapies at that point in history could actually halt biological aging and expedite scientific cures to kids.
Hmm. So you did follistatin and HTRT, right?
Yeah. So yeah,
Why, why
full
did
stack.
you why did you pick those specifically?
We picked telomerase reverse transcriptase, which is the TERT gene, because it at that time in scientific history and still does shows the biggest impact of a single gene that you could take to treat biological aging. So the caps of our chromosomes have something called telomeres, and those telomeres shorten as our cells divide. And not only humans, but 23 other species' lifespans are actually linked directly to the shortening of those telomeres. So when your cells can no longer divide, your body cannot repair. And there are different telomere shortening consequences, telomeropathies throughout your body. One of them that has become more popular recently due to COVID is immune senescence. So think about this: your cells divide to repair you, but your cells in your immune system also have to divide to fight an infection. During COVID-19, upon autopsy and reports, blood reports after death, people who died of COVID had what's called cellular senescence. They had short telomeres in their T lymphocytes. So their T lymphocytes could no longer divide to actually protect their body against the infection. So all over your body, there's telomeropathies. In children, one of the biggest telomeropathies is a disease called progeria. These kids die of the same things we die of in our 80s and 90s, but in their teens and early 20s. And the one of the biggest hallmarks of the disease is it's a lamina gene defect, but the effect of the disease is short telomeres. So we knew that telomeres mattered, and we knew that they mattered in actually most diseases. So they're not the perfect measurement of aging because your telomeres can be short for a very long time of your life once you age, But when they get short, you have the diseases of aging come on, the onset of, a myriad of things that we die of, dementia, cardiovascular, uh, kidney disease, COPD. But they can actually stay short for a long time, and they protect your body by going senescent. So you can have short telomeres for a long time, but short telomeres definitely are correlated with end stage disease. So that was one of the genes, and then the other one was follistatin. That was brought in by a doctor friend of mine because he said that it had already been used for Duchenne's and Becker's muscular dystrophy. The clinical trials were very slow. We could potentially expedite them to get a profile and see if that gene would also help people with something called sarcopenia in aging, which is muscle frailty as we age. So as we get older, we have less muscle mass, and that's associated with all-cause mortality as well.
Hmm. Since then, you took also multiple other gene therapies.
Yeah.
Um, Looking back, would you still, if you would advise someone else to take gene therapy, would you say still those two are the first two you would take?
Telomerase reverse transcriptase is something I think that everyone needs to take if you want to have cellular repair and hopefully eventually break the bottleneck of lifespan. With humans, that bottleneck has been very permanently set. Despite immunizations, antibiotics, and workplace safety, we've extended health span, but we've never been able to extend the maximum lifespan of the species. That would be the gene therapy to do it. Even in mice, when you epigenetically reprogram them, they don't persist to an extremely long lifespan. They don't die from telomere shortage. And so measuring it in them makes lifespan a little bit different. But humans, it is one of our shortest fuses, and we know that. So it's one that I would certainly do, but I wouldn't say that I wouldn't do the other gene therapies too, because it turns out it doesn't appear to cure all of aging. And so, the single bullet, we don't think is really out there, where
Mm,
it's going to be a multi genomic approach.
okay, yes. Mm, After you took the gene therapy first, what did the immediate post-procedure months look like to you?
Well, for me, they were, I did some writing at that time because I wasn't really telling anyone that I had done it. And, it was interesting because we didn't know what would happen. We had to tell our scientific advisors. One of them quit. One of them said that they gave me 13 days to live right after
Okay.
treatment. So I was determined to, I think I responded by that I would live 15 at least. And, I was watching kind of for any symptom that was bad or good. I tried not to be paranoid. My family didn't know I took it, so it was great. I came home, I had lots of bruising. They noticed that. I had a way to just kind of explain it away that, we're practicing some medical approaches to gene therapy. And I was, being the test subject, which was true, so it wasn't a lie. And, but I needed my kids to need their lunch. I needed everyone to need their laundry done, and I needed everything to function as normal as possibly. And so it was really a lot of talking to the doctors, explaining, any symptoms that I had and how I was feeling. And it was it wasn't there was nothing, like, fancy about it. I mean, I think a lot of people would be, "Oh, wow, you guys, made history and stuff," but it didn't really feel like that. It felt like a very day-to-day kinda thing,
Mm,
and back then, there was a lot of fear around telomerase reverse transcriptase, especially causing cancer, but in no animal model had it ever done that. It actually had protected against cancer. And so, I don't know, I can't explain it, but there was a lot of poking my body all over, seeing how I felt, checking in, but not too much, and mostly getting on with my life and documenting as much as I could.
awesome. Wow. I think it also maybe comes forth a bit from your maybe more your philosophy stance. I've heard you say best choice medicine multiple times. Could you maybe explain what that means and also your approach in general on the freedom of people that they could decide over their own bodies?
Yeah, so I went back to school and I did my MBA, and my thesis was based around regulations. And after my experience, especially with having to go out of the country, having to be very covert about doing a therapy that could save my life. Yeah, I was only 44 at the time. But I was definitely suffering from symptoms of biological aging. Catching them early is probably best. And so essentially, what I did is I dove into regulations, global regulations, and I tried to point out what was wrong with it and what's wrong with our thinking as a society. Yeah, there are charlatans. There are people who try to take advantage of people to make money. There are zero sum gamers. But if we want to live as a species and prosper and get to the next stage, we have pushed regulations to the point where people actually have to take their consideration of their life into their own hands, learn about technology that's a pretty high learning curve, and go and participate in it somewhere else. Best choice medicine is a pre regulatory plan that would give us the right to do that in any country of the world. Think about it. You live in the Netherlands. You have the right to go through euthanasia if you feel like it, but you don't actually have the right to take any medicine to try to live, even if it might kill you. And, that should be your choice. We tend to see the patient as being ignorant, as, this is the way they explain it away, why regulations are so important. But actually, people are intelligent. And if you give them the ability to talk to licensed doctors about new medicine and why they might participate in that, it really changes the game and actually puts a lot of pressure back on the companies to make sure they're doing right because you're doing something outside of a regulatory zone. So, you're taking chances yourself. It's the reason why my company never treated anyone else besides myself.
Mhm. So yeah, I think maybe the it's fair to say that the status quo guarantees death
Yep.
eventually. So why do you think so many people keep clinging onto this status quo?
I think that a lot of people aren't educated about the options. The fear mongers speak louder than anyone else on a level playing field. Regulation hides behind the mantra that drugs should be safe before they're used in humans, but a phase one, two, and three is an experiment. As a matter of fact, launched drugs that you take today are an experiment, and we're actually dying taking them. So we're 100% likely to die of all cause mortality of aging, even if you take your drugs as prescribed today, because there are no legalized drugs that are actually life extension drugs. There are some that may border. Metformin has benefits. I'm certain that in our research there are things that outstrip it without, blocking metabolic pathways of growth. Um, so there are some things out there, but but they have diminishing returns. Even if you diet and exercise, you do everything right, it's diminishing returns. You're going to die of biological aging. We have to get more powerful medicine out to people now. And anything less than that, because of what the research shows, is murder. So if the regulatory paths can't do it, if they can't help you get access to these technologies as easy as they help you get access to euthanasia, we have a problem and we need a new regulatory pathway.
Mhm. The current administration in the United States seems a bit less keen on regulation. Have you already seen in your company any changes in this regard, or is it still not as quickly as you would like?
We're not seeing changes at our level. The last time we applied for a pre-IND was a few years ago with human data, and we were told to go back and do what would be the equivalent of about $10 million of more animal research. And that was really shocking. Things are shifting here so fast that I'm not sure what is happening, but we still have the US FDA, which is fine. We should have that. Pharma should use the US FDA, but the gene and cell technologies should use a pre regulatory path for terminal patients and patients who want to access it, and then get a much quicker route to regulatory approval.
Mhm. Okay, so BioViva is an American company, obviously, and but you license to other companies that operate in different countries, right?
Yeah.
What? Yeah, please go on.
Yeah, so BioViva is just a US company. We build protocols. They're usually tested all on myself. I don't think we've let anything else out that wasn't. And then we license to companies who can do patient access in different places of the world under different formal either regulations or by clinical trial initiated studies by doctors.
Which countries do you operate in then?
So those companies, some of those companies will be going into the Bahamas. As you know, there's a law there now that you can not only use gene therapy, but you can treat biological aging.
Mm.
That's outstripped any government in the world as far as humanitarian patient access, and you're going to see that one ramping up. But there's other places in the world as well that clinical trials that are investigator initiated have been used, like Mexico and Colombia. You often see those out there. We do have licensing partner in China. China is working out some quicker regulatory routes for regenerative medicine now, and we're excited about that. And then even other places of the world that I can't talk about yet are working on new regulations to help patients get access. But unfortunately, the EU and the United States are trailing far behind.
Mm. Okay, if these other countries work, is it still needed for the US and the EU to also change its laws to become less have less regulation, or do you think it's fine if it works in other countries?
Well, when we look at something like best choice medicine, it's not really less regulation. It's just a lot more fluid. It's cheaper and it's faster for patients. So some regulation's important. We need to know how drugs work. We don't want to just
Mm.
have like an open source cascade of gene therapies and then we don't know how they work or what patients they would actually help. It expedites research to keep some eyes on what's happening there. It is, to me, it is mandatory that the United States and the EU step up because their patient populations need this. Not everyone can afford to travel to a foreign country or should have to do that for medical tourism. We need to own the technology right here in our own countries. We need to push the innovation and we need to be here to address this for the biggest markets in the world, and our patients deserve that.
Mhm. And
If you think about just dementia, a lot of people with dementia can't even fly. So,
mm,
we're just going to say, well, oh, that's okay. They can just take that easy path for euthanasia because their life is over. No, we need to help everyone.
yeah. Um, in terms of AI, we hear a lot of about AI. It's making a lot of progress. We have seen big breakthroughs with AlphaFold, and the CEO of Google DeepMind. He also started his own biotech company. What do you think? How AI can help, or do you even think AI will improve biotech a lot? And does BioViva use AI itself, or
Yeah.
yeah, to find new science?
Yeah. So right now, when you have AI read a paper, and we actually pay for multiple AI systems, they're not doing a very good job. There's definitely hallucinations still. So what we've done is we've built our own hand drawn database that basically has compartmentalized all the deliveries, the sequences, what the gene was used for, what animal model it was in, and what the outcomes were. And we've compiled, I think, over 4,000, and we've got interns on this now who are compiling more. And then want to use an internal AI system, not something that reaches out, not something that hallucinates. So we'll definitely be doing that because if anyone noticed, we never started as a single gene company. We can make any gene therapy, any known gene therapy. We can make an unknown gene therapy, but I wouldn't use that in a human. um, And we make gene therapies for monogenic disease, compassionate use, and then we do a slew of the aging associated ones in which we do have to patent because we have to make sure that the open use access is for everyone in the future. We don't want these behind paywalls for people who need them. So we put our money into that. But we started with combinatorial gene therapies, and the amount of literature review that we have to do to pull forward a combinatorial gene therapy, which we have for multiple conditions, is a lot. It's many work person's hours. We would like our database to work to actually expedite, to even pull up what we might not have thought of as a known gene that could treat biological aging. Maybe there's a rare childhood blood disorder and a gene therapy has been used in animal models, maybe even in humans, and it turns out to be the perfect combination that we need for some sort of glycation end product or something that we didn't expect. So yes, we do use it. We find that it hallucinates. So we're trying to build a better AI system so that patients, doctors, and researchers and universities will be able to type in a condition, a polygenic condition, meaning something that is not a single gene. So something like hemophilia B is a single gene. So when they take the gene factor 9 and they replace it, those people, their disease is formatively cured in a sense. When we look at something like aging, it's not a single gene. It's an autoimmune condition like type 1 diabetes is even actually more radical than that because it's the immune system going awry. So when we look at a polygenic disorder, we would love to have our system say, here we've got, idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. Lengthening telomeres, yes, is one thing, but here's three other things that gene therapies that you should also use. Yeah, that's what we're
Mhm.
we're trying to build, but we can't be flippant about it. We can't. This is not like doing a search on Chat GPT to write a better sentence for you. This is literally could lead to the life or death of someone. So it still will have to be tested. So yes, it will help, um, but it still has to be tested in a human, and maybe one in every 10,000 humans could have a bad event to it. So now we're working with a genomics company we're building a business plan right now with them to actually use all known genomics. So when we do gene therapy, we take when our clinics do them, the licensing partners, we actually take a whole genome sequence. And we wanna know, why the gene therapies work better in some people than other people. Well, working with a genomics company will actually help us even more with that. And still, it's gonna be human data is gonna be king, and it's gonna need a lot of human data, like tens of thousands for each gene therapy, and then we'll have a better picture. So AI can do a lot, but biology is complex. We'll still have to
Mhm.
know what happens in a human.
Okay, and your vision maybe in 5 or 10 years, do you think it will change? And maybe by then.
In 5 or 10 years, certainly, the medical tourism in the world will be much more affordable than it is now because by scale, gene therapies are affordable. A lot of people don't realize that. I'm hoping that by then in the US and the EU, there will be pathways, at least for compassionate use, that are affordable and accessible that still hinge on data collection so we know if the drug worked and how well it worked in those patients and if we can actually repurpose it for new patients. We're already bringing on three new gene therapies in the next 2 months with BioViva. I'll be testing them. And we'll see how that goes. And, we're hoping that those in combination with the other ones will be super beneficial and we'll have more targets. And, for the world, I think so what's important to the person listening? Number one, we want you to live long. Um, we want you to be prosperous and we want you to have gain in gene function that maybe even you didn't even previously have. And we want that to be something that the reason we work on viral based gene therapies, it was we want it to be something that you take and you don't have to worry about for maybe decades. So the first hemophilia B patients that were treated over 13 years ago were just tested, and they're still upregulating this protective protein from the gene that was delivered. You know, so we wanna take you away from bottles of pills and away from, setting reminders and not knowing if you took your prescription and take you into the world where you kinda set it and forget it, and then the rest is up to you. You optimize. You wanna take your nutraceuticals, you wanna do your lifestyle changes, then you optimize your gene therapies, and hopefully you live a better life than you even previously did.
Mhm. On that note, maybe more generally, what does society get wrong about anti-aging?
I think that what society gets wrong about anti-aging is that they have always thought that it's historically about aesthetics. Anti-aging to us, sorry, I had a little itch. Anti-aging to us, historically has been just a march for aesthetics. It's like, how do you look good as long as possible? But when you look at gene therapy companies, anti-aging is all the way through your body. There was a recent study. I do so much literature review, but there was just something that came out where they're looking at organs, like visually at organs over time, and you can see aging in every one of your organs. So if you think your skin looks bad, you should see your brain. You should see, your kidneys. Oh my God. Everybody has a degree of kidney failure, over the age of like 60. You should see your stem cells, something that we really can't see. By the time you're 65, you only have 5% of them left due to shortening telomeres. Those are re engineering your body. They're fixing all of the damage. If they cannot fix it, you are done for. And so it really, anti aging is survival, it's not aesthetics. I mean, how we might even want to look in the future might be very different than we look today. Beauty changes. Um, there's a lot more, to it than aesthetics.
Would you say those you just mentioned are the most important hallmarks of aging?
I don't think you can, like, pick a most important hallmark of aging, but one thing that you can say is that certain hallmarks of aging, probably, if you fixed them, they would fix some of the other ones. So one thing we see with lengthening telomeres is reduced inflammation. Inflammaging being a hallmark of aging, that's a very important outcome. Follistatin also reduces inflammation, as does alpha klotho. So there are different hallmarks of aging that I don't. How could you say which one's the most important? I mean, genomic instability is one of the first hallmarks of aging, and it will be a growing list because remember, it's a wish list to treat aging, is what it is. But genomic instability leads to cancer. Cancer is an insidious disease that you do not want. So, mitochondrial dysfunction, though, when you go to the grocery store and you see the old people and they're moving really slow, they can't move faster than that. They don't have cellular energy. Telomere shortening. Telomeres get short, you're going to get, end stage diseases, including an increased exponential risk in cancer. All the nutrient sensing, the intra and extracellular damage. I mean, it's really tough because if they're not all fixed, ask a person, do you want to live to 120 years or 150? They'll probably choose 150. I don't see 150 as an option for humans. If we can fix the damage, there's no reason we can't live far beyond that. I mean, why would you start an industry with a limiting factor?
hmm Um, uh, Maybe to go a bit deeper into your philosophy, then, what is your goal for the or your thought about the human body? Do you just want to or just want to have biological immortality, or do you see a future in which we maybe enhance humans and maybe become something more of post-human?
I mean, I think probably both would be. good. I think that, I mean, when I've thought about my life, I didn't come in to longevity to live forever. So it's kind of crazy to hear myself say, yeah, now I'm getting excited and I want to see the future. And because I wouldn't have done my first gene therapies if I was trying to live forever. I was just trying to figure out if we had curative medicine so these kids didn't have to suffer and people could live better. But now the goal of the company is to put a body into complete homeostasis, where you repair faster than you degenerate and you live as long as you want to, or as long as you can, within the confines of natural disasters. And I want people to, I want them to just take what we have that's life and actually start valuing it, and therefore value everything else here on this planet. Our cells make us up. We need to keep them healthy. But we are dependent on one huge cell, which is called the planet Earth. And if we don't take, we are only as healthy as that cell. And that means not only its air and its water, but its social environment. We have to take care of each other. And I feel like if we live longer and it's an atrocity to kill someone and it's an atrocity to die, we will take better care of each other. And I just don't see how we have a future. Otherwise, I don't play zero sum games because I don't want to be the last person alive on a hill. I want our kids to see this. I want their kids to see this. I want there to be a future for humans because we bring meaning to the world. We are destructive, but we are beautiful. We bring consciousness. We bring conscious effort to all the beauty that was actually already previously designed before we got here. And we have the ability to see this planet through to more amazing things. And for those people who want to see other planets, but we also have the ability to expand consciousness into new creatures, new beings, things that could help the planet. I mean, I love scientific progress, but I don't see the benefits in bringing back extinct species. They're extinct because the planet changed and left them behind somehow. But I do see the benefit of bringing in new species that can adapt to what we need and actually help us make the planet healthier and better. So, I think through science we'll do amazing things. Maybe your future therapist, I suppose I probably need one. I've never believed in them, but your future therapist might be a little monkey, cat, dog, giraffe thing that sits in your pocket and you can communicate with it. You know, we
Mm,
don't even know. And that might be enough to pull people through deep depressions and things that we will cure in the future, but to give them hope of the future and the excitement about it that we can't imagine today. So, gosh, I think that like I went from being like a public spectacle of being like, well, we can either do this or we can't. So let's get on with it, to actually believing that we have a future, but it has to be united in benevolence, And humans are not benevolent creatures. They deceive, but if we can pull our best of our best together, the 80% of the best will make it and we will become amazing.
mhm. Yes, I think that reminds me of Max Moore. Maybe it's a friend of yours. He's also very active in the transhumanist community, and he always says that when we live longer, life actually becomes more meaningful because we can actually see every result from the actions we take. And I do agree on that because many people always say, "Yeah, well, death makes life meaningful." But then again, I think seeing your actions and the results of the actions you take will probably lead to much more meaning and also doing more benevolent things over the long run, I would say.
I don't see how anyone could say that death gives life meaning, because when you look at the death specifics, and what's something called mortality priming. That was a scientific paper that was put out. When people know they're going to die, they treat the world worse, and the people around them, they become insular and they stockpile for their own families. That that is the opposite. It's also very terrorizing. It scares us. It makes us think, "Oh, I better just go buy everything now because, I'm in my mid-50s now." Okay. So, maybe life is really short, so I should just, cash out and enjoy my last, hopefully, 30 years. Yeah, it makes people worse, and we actually know that. Young or old, if you're diagnosed with a disease, it doesn't make you a bad person, but you're less likely to get out, meet more people, do more humanitarian things, network, and do all those things. And it makes sense because you're terror managing your own existential crisis. It's a
Mm.
terrible, terrible passport to carry.
Yeah. You just told me about how you expected in 5 to 10 years, medical tourism will probably get bigger.
Mhm.
I also asked you about AI. You do. It seems like you do have a vision or maybe a forecast in your own head about what you expect from the next couple of years. Maybe for our listeners that are curious about the future, could you maybe paint a picture of what you expect to see in the next 10 to 20 years, and maybe a bit more about the longevity community and where you all think all this is going?
Well, I mean, if I'm there's 2 tracks. There's the, very optimistic track, and there's the more pessimistic track. I'm a solutionist, so my pessimism never goes so far that it's going to be, too bad. The optimistic track is that, longevity is part of a mainstream understanding and knowledge. People are seeking out information, and they're demanding access to new technologies and new regulatory pathways to get them. Right to try in the United States made a huge impact. It gave people the right to try drugs that had been through phase one. Problem is, not a lot of those drugs have been great drugs. I mean, they're good, but we're in a new whole phase of medicine since that law was put in, and we need drugs at earlier route of development. So that is the best case scenario is that you're starting to see those pre-regulatory routes go online. Compassionate use has gotten much easier to access. Data is being shared, and companies are working together to try to cure biological aging. There's no reason that billionaires should be sitting and just creating their own companies of known technology and trying to, outwit everyone and own all the technology. The second case scenario is more pessimistic. It's kind of more how things are now, and let's say there's not a lot of change. Mostly only the rich are accessing things, especially like gene therapies, because one-off gene therapies are very, very expensive. The general public is becoming sour with the concept that they are not getting access with these technologies, and instead of formalizing and preparing their approach to it, there starts to be a breaking down of society and anger, because when you approach the government, you have to do it correctly in order to get rights to access, or else everyone looks crazy and they don't have to do anything. So it might be a less formalized path, a less structured path of just dissent. And then eventually the technologies come through, but they come through by a different pressure of disorganization. And it will take longer, and they will not be there for most people. So we need a really centralized and decentralized approach, but that is very highly managed and organized in order to see that first future.
Mhm. Yes, there are certainly.
Technology will not stop. The cat is
Mhm,
out of the bag, and people are accessing these technologies already. Best case scenario, everyone is safe and comes out healthier and is a great role model for the future.
mhm. There are people that are indeed a bit worried about if this is only for rich people. How can
Mhm.
you convince them that that's not true and that these initial investments are benefiting them and making it cheaper down the road?
Well, without people who have the financial wherewithal, we would have, outside of myself, almost no data, and that's the whole world of stem cells and everything else that pre-existed medical tourism, gene therapy by decades. So the reason that there is any data out there is because people who could financially afford it pushed for it. Now, stem cells would be an example of where things went terribly wrong. A lot of those clinics didn't take data, they didn't organize the data, and therefore it's still a regulatory battle even to get access to your own cells. That should have never happened. The gene therapy concept with us is going through much more succinctly. We're working on regulations, we're working on patient rights. It's not just about making money, it's about making better drugs. And no one's getting rich over here. So, we have done the best we can to streamline the process and do it as a humanitarian progress rather than more like, oh, we'll just send it out in the wild and make money. So hopefully, what we'll see with this is a better organization of society, better data, and a better push for governments to approve it. Also, what's really great is the US already has 13 approved gene therapies. And so it's not like a auspicious sort of zone. It's not like, oh, we don't know if it works. We know for monogenic disease it works. It's already gone through the proof in the pudding, I think we call it in the United States. Pudding tastes good. It actually works and it gets me full. And that means that we know the technology works and it is regulatory approved. We just have to get it working for much more complex disorders. So I guess, in that sense, we've sort of genetics and gene therapy sort of outstripped the early cell therapies just due to better organization. And now, stem cells are following.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah, I think that we have seen the same approach maybe with Tesla, where at first it was a very, very expensive car that only very rich people could afford. But then again, it also funded the company itself. And over time, we have seen economies of scale. We have seen Tesla being able to produce more cars, and now it's more affordable, and most people can, or a lot of people can actually afford it. And I think hopefully we will see the same thing happening with in biotech, and I think we have seen the same thing in medicine. So the people that are funding it, especially in the beginning, and maybe the rich people, they are actually benefiting the overall community, I would say.
Oh, yeah, remember Tesla was in the red and almost went out of business several times. So, these are zones that need a lot of research money, but they also have capitalization strategies, and that's something in medicine we didn't have before. I am not tooting my horn because I don't want to be, I'm not the smartest person. Okay. I surround myself with smart people. But the one superpower I have is probably my ignorance. It was just asking simple questions, and I wasn't indoctrinated into the medical system. I wasn't indoctrinated into, hardcore academic research. I just said, why can't we do it? If we have technology that actually extended a mouse life, why can't we do it? If we have these drugs and patients need them, why can't we create a regulatory system in which they can get access to them? And I've asked him, we did a patient study in dementia. It was the first study in the world with gene therapy, and it helped them, it improved them 4 out of 5 patients with their cognition. And now I've got another group that's moving that forward to actual technology. And it was just because I said, these patients are dying. Why can't they get access? And then other people said, yeah, yeah, of course. But it was really, my ignorance has been my superpower of why just can't we do that then?
Hmm.
And, obviously that upset some people, I'm sure, but they've come around and the people that used to write about us and say, "Oh, this is insane," now they contact me and they ask me how I can get their drugs to patients, and we can. And so, we close the loop on letting people know that BioViva is actually a friendly company. We are here to help you, whether it's your drugs, your patients, or regulatory. Like we're trying to help with all of it.
Hmm. Okay, you said you started maybe with a bit of ignorance, but now you've been into the space for quite a long time. What's maybe the most important thing you have learned over all these years?
Maybe stay ignorant. Because the thing is, like, when I think that one thing that I learned is that we often ask the wrong people for the wrong things, okay?
Mhm,
So, healthcare system, we asked it for cures, but the healthcare system wasn't set up to medically cure you. It was set up to
mhm,
treat your symptoms. We
mhm,
asked the oil companies for clean energy. They are energy companies, but they're not clean energy companies, you know? And so, and we're dependent on them. And that's not their job. We ask attorneys for justice. Judges are for justice. Attorneys will take money from anyone who has it. Okay? So even in our own industry, there are people that are there playing a zero-sum game. They want to put all the money into one thing and rule the world. And I would rather stay ignorant of that and do my good work and show my value than to get caught up in that side of it. I don't want to be contaminated.
mhm,
I want to stay on my mission, and I want to find the good people. And I found a lot of good people, amazing people, all the way to the top, even in government now. And those are the people that I want to create a future world with. And I believe that everyone else will follow. This isn't, we got to do it right. If you cure a disease, there's a lot of money in that. So money isn't the issue anymore. It's how do you prove you cured a disease and how do you do it without the support of regulatory systems that'll cost you $1 billion to use? And so that's in helping a million companies do that. I need to help a million companies do that. And when we get done with a million companies and we've cured all aging, I need a million more companies for a million more problems that we're going to have that are going to make our life more awesome. We got to lift everyone up. And that's been hard starting at the bottom, trying to lift people up with no power. But as we start to have more, maybe not power, but people listen to us now and they actually see the mission and they believe in it and they see that this is the right trajectory. I can help people and people help me now too, which is
mhm.
fantastic.
Okay, so maybe it's fair to say that in the beginning you were a bit controversial, and then over time now, um, yeah, you're more sophisticated in the field, and people trust you more. To anchor on that, maybe what belief do you still have that you still hold, which today still others find controversial?
Well, th- I mean, there's different types of controversy to have, right? I believe solely in patients' rights, and that's controversial. Giving people access to medicine that hasn't been through a phase 3 clinical study. Um, I have inherent things that I believe in creating a better world that are probably controversial. You know, I think that just what I've said before, it's not a zero-sum game. Being the last person on the hill might be other people's goals, it's not mine. People make life interesting. My lifestyle, to some people is controversial. I don't eat animals, uh, and that's strange to people, but I'm definitely a life extensionist for everyone. I don't know. I don't know. I think that more and more people, are turning my direction that we can do this. We can make even new technology profitable, and it should be. And and I think that that resonates with a lot of people, and that profitability pushes affordability. I believe, and I suppose that is controversial, that gene therapy can be affordable. That the gene therapy that lasts for decades can be under $10,000. And I see it in scale. I've already run the numbers. Now you may have doctor's fees on top of that and a hospital fee, but that's affordable for the masses right there. And it's worth insurance companies covering. Um, I believe that already we can do better than Sinclair's model of saving the government trillions of dollars by slowing aging by 1 year. I think we could slow it by several years with the technology that we already have for most patients.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know. I don't even know if I'm controversial anymore. I was definitely at one time, but now I'm just mom again.
Mhm. Awesome. Just to get to the last couple of questions, maybe for the people listening, do you have a specific recommendation, maybe for a young people, a person like me, that's listening, maybe listens to a conversation like this for the first time, that is not very familiar um, with life extension? What can you recommend to them?
Well, I mean, you should look into it. I remember being young like you. And I remember, I think I was in my 20s, and a study came out that showed that, well, it was not a study, it was an article, and it was saying that people who had a lot of money were trying to live longer through taking vitamin C. And I remember my husband and I looking at each other and going, you know, and why are they trying to live longer? I mean, like, life is amazing. I was really part of the circle of life still. I just had my first child and I was like, oh, life is beautiful. I'll get old and impart my wisdom. The thing that we don't consider is illness. And at that point of my life, I had my parents. I had some of my grandparents. I didn't know what death looked like, and I didn't know how degrading and horrible it was. I didn't understand what it was to become a dependent. I didn't understand what it was to not be able to breathe or not know the people around me anymore. And I certainly didn't know what it was to have a child that was sick. And if we push now, and if we push with our hearts, our minds, and our souls for the future, you won't ever have to know what that feels like. And that is what I would like young people to know. So even if this doesn't seem important to you right now, there's that famous saying, a healthy person, or I think it says a healthy man wants a million things, but a sick person only wants one. And that sick person will eventually be you, your mom, your dad, your children, if we don't do something about it. So we really have to do something about it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for talking with me today. I just had one final question. If people want to find you online, where can they do so?
Oh, if you want to find us, we have social media. I read so many papers and I saw someone did a poll recently of people in longevity and like their influence level. And mine was super low. It was like the lowest. And it's because I don't typically put opinions in my social media.
Mm.
I don't feel like a lot of things are important for me to talk about there. So what I do put there is amazing things happening in science. And I would think that that would rate really high because I share papers of all sorts of cool things happening in gene and cell therapy around biological aging and childhood disease and autoimmune conditions. And they're happening in real time. Some of them are happening in humans, some of them are happening in mice. And as you know, I'm connected to about 20 companies that take mice data very seriously, whereas otherwise that could take 20 or 30 years to get to you. So, I think that those papers are just the highlight of everything. And as we know in science, things can go wrong and things can get trolled. And so take with a grain of salt everything that you read and get a hold of. But if it's worth it, you'll probably see one of my companies pushing it forward.
Awesome. I think that's a beautiful way to end it. Liz, thank you so much for coming on today, and I think people have definitely learned a lot about you and about the topic. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Rob. It's been fun.